Ladies and gentlemen, if I can have your attention, please. The clerk has advised me that we have a quorum, and that being the case, I would like to open the annual town meeting for the town of East Long Meadow. I believe this might be the 119th annual town meeting, given when the town was incorporated. Is that any better? Okay. Let me begin with the fire notice. In the very unlikely event that we need to make an emergency exit, there are two fire doors in the rear of the hall, one each to my right and left, and one each behind me on either side of the stage of the auditorium. I would ask that you please rise for an invocation. We have assembled tonight to exercise the form of governance in which we order our affairs. Let us tonight come together in a spirit of community, recognizing that all of us are different and that there is room for healthy disagreement and constructive communication. Let us also consider carefully our civic responsibility, not only to our generation, but to the generations to come, so that we can leave to them a town as strong and as beautiful as the one we have enjoyed. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. I'd like to begin by congratulating the newly elected officers for the town from the election that was held on April the 9th. For Selectmen, Angela Thorpe; Board of Assessors, Bill Johnston; Public Works, John Mayberry; School Committee, Bill Fonseca and Elizabeth Marjan Boucher; and Library Trustee, Virginia Robbins; Planning Board, George Kingston. Congratulations to all of you. In addition, as you undoubtedly know, we had some turnover on the Board of Selectmen, and during the period prior to April of 2013, Deborah Bronski-Burak and Peter Punderson were both elected to the Board of Selectmen as well, and congratulations to each of them and to Deborah for her continued service. And I would like to thank you for honoring me by electing me for another term as your moderator. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite Paul Federici, the chair of the Board of Selectmen, to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. It's my pleasure tonight to begin the meeting by announcing the anniversaries of some of our town employees. The one-year anniversary employees are firefighter Christopher Albano, firefighter Joshua Allegana, Frank Camiso, Department of Public Works, firefighter Patrick Hawley, Joseph Lawrence, Council on Aging, Judy Puchetta, Department of Public Works, Tom Pope, Department of Public Works, Police Officer Michael Sousa, and firefighter Matthew Turowski. The 5-year anniversaries are Police Officer Daniel Atwater, firefighter Larry Buell, Luke Koulis, Department of Public Works, Joe Dunn, Department of Public Works, Steve Hanna, Department of Public Works, Jennifer Kinder, Library, Kay McCormick, Library, Deborah Milliken, Clerk's Office, Gina Munson, Library, Kristen Severia, Library, Robin Sineo, Library, Danelle Tavella, Council on Aging. The 10-year employees are Fire Lieutenant Ben Cody, firefighter John Capolo, Tom Florence, Clerk, Treasurer, Collector, Linda Lockery, Assessors, firefighter Edward McCandlish, Felix Vachon, Department of Public Works. The 15-year anniversaries are Police Sergeant Daniel Bruno, firefighter Chris Higgins, Fire Lieutenant James Leclerc, Robin McDonald, Director of Planning, Zoning, and Conservation, Police Sergeant Steve Manning, firefighter Craig Otteson, Police Officer Terry Shaw, and Police Officer Stuart Stroman. The 20-year anniversaries are Mark Bale, School Department, Fire Captain Bob Luffman, Wendy Cruz, School Department. Nancy Donahue, School Department. Romilda Jelinas, School Department. Teresa Hellier, School Department. Judy Milano, School Department. Donna Miller, School Department, and Diane Tiago, School Department. The 25-year anniversaries are James Bollier, School Department. John Demersky, Department of Public Works. Mary Collins, School Department. Gail Condon, School Department. Marie Matulowicz, School Department. Linda Siciliano, School Department. Kimberly Staback, School Department. Donna Sushecki, School Department. 30-year anniversaries. Ursula O'Donnell, School Department. Carol Schenk, Recreation. Veronica Richter, School Department. Judith Rosso, School Department. 35-year anniversaries. Tony Longo, Department of Public Works. Police Sergeant Patrick Manley. Franklin Morandi, Department of Public Works. And the 40-year anniversary employees are Roy Esposito, Department of Public Works, and Shirley Skiffington, School Department. Let's give them all a nice round of applause. Now on the other side, the unfortunate task is announcing the retirements of people. And we'll go in order of their length of service. Nancy A. Laverdiere, School Department, 6 years. Barbara A. Claffey, School Department, 9 years. Joan L. Claffey, School Department, 10 years. Marie Ann Becchiacchi, Library, 12 years. Cynthia McNaught, Library, 15 years. Joanne Smith, Library, 15 years. Fire Lieutenant Brian A. Hill, 18 years. Kathleen M. Hill, School Department, 21 years. Patricia Hitchcock, School Department, 21 years. Charlotte A. McIntyre, School Department, 22 years. Angela Aber, School Department, 23 years. Deborah G. DiBiasio, School Department, 23 years. Nancy D. Morrow, School Department, 24 years. Marie T. Matulowicz, School Department, 25 years. Donna M. Sushecki, School Department, 25 years. Police Officer Amico Baroni, 27 years. Fred Kowal, Health Agent, 29 years. Keith Brownlee, School Department, 34 years. And Fire Chief Richard Brady, 36 years. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to invite Carl Olin, the chair of the Independence Day Committee, to the microphone.
Thank you. My name is Carl Olin. I'm the chairman of the 4th of July Parade Committee. And once again, my purpose is to introduce the Grand Marshal for the 2013 4th of July Parade. I would be remiss, however, if I didn't express our appreciation from the committee to the entire community of East Longmeadow, the public and private sector, and everyone who helps to make this event the success that it is. This is the 16th year that we have selected a Grand Marshal. The nominating committee is comprised of past Grand Marshals. Some of the considerations are that a person has participated in town events, has served on committees, has volunteered for various activities, and has been an active member of a civic group, a service organization, a youth group, etc. Through a business or religious affiliation, has worked to better the town, and basically has brought us to the stage we are as a community, and we are certainly blessed to have these folks of people like this in our community. The past Grand Marshals, some of whom you will know, some of whom you don't know, have served, and their legacy, whether they have passed on or are still with us, lives with us. The first person selected was Marshall Hanson, followed by Joe Scanlon, Richard Clark, Baba Tranghese, Willie Ferrero, Chandler Newell, Jim Connor, Mike Boucher, Merle Safford, Bob Hildreth, Sue Grimaldi, Marilyn Richards, Dan Lacedonia, Lloyd Oakes, and Jim Rintoul. Our person this year certainly is in that category. This person is married, has 2 children, 5 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren, and has been a resident of East Long Meadow since 1937. He's a veteran of the United States Air Force, was a special police officer in the 50s, and a past active member of the Jaycees. Is an active member of the First Congregational Church since 1958, serving on many committees and including the Board of Directors. In 2004, was the Church Women's Outstanding Fellowship Award winner and has volunteered with the Boy Scouts from that church on many projects. Is an active member of the East Long Meadow Lions Club for over 30 years, working on all sorts of the committees, such as the parade float, pancake breakfast, golf tournament, and many other events that the Lions sponsor. He was a Lions Club president in 1980 and 81, the Lion of the Year in 1989 and 1990, and received the Melvin Jones Fellowship Award in 2003 and 4, which is the highest award given in the Lions organization. And he's been in charge of the Christmas manger scene in the Rotary for the Lions Club for over 35 years. And I think we all know how that adds to the Christmas season that we have, and it's something that we all look forward to. He has to set it up, and he takes it down and stores it, and dedicated beyond belief. He was the Lions Club's Distinguished Citizen in 2007, is an active member of the East Long Meadow Historical Commission and treasurer for 15+ years, first founder and on board of directors and treasurer for the Norcross House since 2000, past member of the National Home Builders Association, co-owner of Suburban Cabinet in East Long Meadow for 30 years, opened his own cabinet maker business, and like all of our other Grand Marshals, still is active, and you will see him presently serving as a voting polls checker at all of our elections. So therefore, it is with great pride and appreciation that we have selected this gentleman, and we announce that the 2000 East Long Meadow 4th of July Grand Marshal for the parade, we know him as Jim, it's James A. Davis. He better be, if he isn't. Oh, here he is.
Is it a surprise to him?
You supply the notes? You do? I really appreciate this. It's a surprise. I'm sorry, I'm lost for words. But to me, the person that's really the Grand Marshal of the East Long Meadow Lions Club parade is this gentleman on my right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations to Mr. Davis. All right, ladies and gentlemen, some housekeeping rules. First, I'd like to welcome any new voters or first-timers to our annual town meeting. If you have a cell phone or a pager, please silence it. Voters should be wearing a white tag. Non-voters have red tags. If you wish to speak on any one of the motions that are made, please move to one of the microphones in either of the aisles and wait to be recognized. Motions need to be in writing. Any substantive amendments to motions need to be in writing. They get delivered to me, I initial them, and then deliver it to the town clerk to be used for the formal and official record. If you do speak, please be civil and courteous. Do not refer to any of the other speakers or members here by name. If we need to do a teller count, then the doors will be closed. Nobody will be able to enter or leave until that count has been completed. Several of the motions that are likely to be made tonight will require a two-thirds vote in order to pass. Those relating to zoning, to the transfer of real estate, and I am told that there may be a motion or two to move up one or more of the articles out of the sequence in which it is published in the town warrant. All of those require a two-thirds vote in order to pass. We changed our bylaw several years ago to allow the moderator to declare a two-thirds vote if the moderator thinks that has been reached. The moderator's decision may be challenged by 7 voters, and if 7 voters do challenge it, then we do a teller count and rely on the teller count. Many of the articles, the motions that are made tonight, require the recommendation for or against by either the Appropriations Committee or the Capital Planning Committee. You can assume that recommendation has been given unless stated otherwise. Most of the recommendations are contained in the warrant itself. Several were not able to be made given the timeline with which the warrant had to be published, and those that were favorably acted upon by the Appropriations or Capital Planning. Again, I don't intend to state that. Of course, if anybody has any questions of either committee, they can be raised in the course of any discussion. So let's get underway with Article 1. And Article 1, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, consistently has been the report of the various boards and committees of the town. This publication, there were several copies made available at the front of the hall tonight. There are also copies available at the town clerk's office. I believe it's also, if not already, online. It is online as well. And I encourage you to take a look at it to see how diligently your elected representatives have been performing on your behalf. The amount of time that goes in by all of the elected and appointed boards of this town and committees is truly astonishing, and we are very blessed by having such dedicated folks. Article 2.
Article 2, I move the town vote to appropriate the grand total fiscal year 2014 budget of $55,247,599, and in order to fund that appropriation, the town raise and appropriate the amount of $53,655,343. Transfer $50,000 from the Kindergarten Revolving Fund, account number 26063590. Transfer $50,000 from the Solid Waste Disposal Revolving Fund, account number 2805-3590. Transfer $42,165 from the Animal Control Fund, account number 2801-3590. Transfer $636,867 from the Water Fund, account number 12-3590. Transfer $605,384 from the Sewer Fund, account number 13-3590. Transfer $57,840 from the Community Preservation Fund Open Space account number 2615. Transfer $150,000 from free cash, account number 01-3590, and any other available balances as required to balance the budget, all for the purpose and charges in anticipation of revenue for the 12-month period beginning July 1, 2013 to support the town's operating budgets as set forth in Exhibit A, printed with the warrant and entitled Fiscal Year 2014 Operating Budgets.
Is there a second?
Well, hopefully my presentation won't take that long from just reading the motion. I am Russell Denver. I'm the chair of this year's Appropriations Committee. And above me on the screen are the committee members. And a little something about the committee members. We have a very experienced group of people. Starts with Jim Broderick, who has been on this committee for over 20 years. And our youngest serving member is Dawn Starks, who's been a member for 3 years. We have business owners, we have attorneys, we have bankers, we have retired individuals. As I said, we have business owners as well. And the ex officio member is the town accountant, Tom Caliento. The Appropriations Committee wishes to put forward for your information a number of definitions which will be helpful in my discussion. In November of 2012, we did start the budget process. And we went to all the departments, boards, and committees with the following definitions. You can see a level funded budget. And for those people who are new to this process, a level funded budget is if you start with $500,000 for the current fiscal year, your budget for next fiscal year should be $500,000. A level service budget is one that the increases in the dollar amount are needed just to meet the prior year's level service. So as an example, if for $500,000 you are running the police department, but you have contractual obligations, it could be for increases for salaries, it could be increases for your copy machine maintenance, for your computer maintenance, so forth, that goes under your level service budget. Then we ask departments to identify for us what budget increases they wish to see to meet additional services on behalf of the residents of the town. And this process starts in November. So the next slide gives you a little information about how we go about preparing budgets and looking at their budgets. We go through every single budget. We go through every single line item. Each member of the Appropriations Committee is assigned a number of departments as their liaison. And it is their charge to meet with those department heads and those committees to identify what is going on with each committee and board. We started something new a number of years ago. In November, we meet with the different departments to try to identify what new budget items that they might have coming forward, so that when we receive their budget in January and start meeting with them, we will have been informed about what new items that they're going to be required to have in their budget. Many of those things are mandated by the state, and oftentimes the town has very little control over these mandates. We look at how salary negotiations are going for town employees so that we can have a best guess in what we might need to put aside for additional funds. And we also look at ways that departments save you, the residents, money. As an example of that, each of the last number of years, the town has put in energy efficiency measures, and they have saved the town hundreds of thousands of dollars. The town has taken advantage of low interest rates, and they've gone out to refinance their bonds, which are long-term obligations of the town, to take advantage of the lower interest rates so the principal and interest payments are reduced, which saves money for all the taxpayers. So over a period of almost 6 months, the Appropriations Committee again meets with all the departments. We get the information we need. We kind of go from a big picture to a smaller picture, which I want to talk about next. But in January, I need to start with this number. Over 20% of the money that the town spends each and every year comes from the state. It comes in the form of education funding. It comes in the form of what they call general government local aid. It is an important piece for the total revenue for the town. And the first number that comes out from the state is in January when the governor releases his budget. And we plug that number into what our revenue is going to be. As I stand here tonight, I can tell you the total local aid number is still unknown to the town, because the House of Representatives prepare a budget, the state Senate prepares a budget, they have different numbers, they go into what is called a conference committee, which they have not met yet on that number, and then they submit a budget to Governor Patrick. Governor Patrick has not seen the final outcome. So our local aid number may go up a little bit, it may go down a little bit, but I have to tell you that it is a very important piece of the pie for the revenues for the town. So the big picture, the Appropriations Committee is recommending a total general fund budget in the amount of $52,593,605. That's an increase of approximately $1,900,000, or a 3.7% increase over the previous year. So we felt it was appropriate to show you where the majority of those increases are coming from, or are going to. It should be no surprise that the largest increase is the school department. They represent well over 55% of the total operating budget for the town. You can see their personnel costs have gone up about $832,000, and their operating expense $240,000. So the numbers we have up there: education, health insurance, which is for town retirees, town employees who've retired, and active employees, that went up $260,000. In each of the last several years, the town has received an additional assessment that it pays for retirement costs for town employees who have retired of $183,000. Police is going up, and I'll get into that in a minute. Inspectors and information technology. Of these 6 departments, that totals approximately $1,776,000 of the total almost 1.9, or 94% of the total increase. So you can see that it's pretty much grouped into about 6 or 7 different departments. People often ask, are we adding additional town personnel? And as you can see from the slide up there, this year the Appropriations Committee is recommending a total increase of 6.1 full-time equivalents. And in the town, approximately a full-time equivalent is someone who works 35 hours a week. You can see the schools are going to increase 1.7, police 1.7. And I'll just touch on the police for a minute. In December of 2012, the Board of Selectmen voted to increase the force by 1 additional officer and to increase some time needed for a records clerk in the new detective bureau that's part of the police department. They felt that it was an appropriate thing to do. The Appropriations Committee confirmed that and agreed with them on that. You can see that we're adding 1 position in the building inspector's office for an administrative individual, a 0.5 in the selectman's office, treasurer's, town accountant, and a 0.2 in the council on aging. Something about these positions that I wish to tell everybody. The police department, building inspector, the plan to kind of change positions within the selectman, treasurer, and town accountants, they have been in front of the appropriations for almost 3 years. And the Appropriations Committee has held numerous meetings with these departments to identify what the needs are for these additional positions, what's the fiscal impact going to be, what type of efficiencies will we be able to gain from these, where will we get the fiscal resources to be able to pay for this, and the number 1 question we ask is, how will this benefit the residents of the town of East Long Meadow? And the Appropriations Committee feel that these positions, some of which have been in the pipeline for over 3 years, are badly needed. So we want to show you how we've been spending your money on free cash. And free cash is a municipal accounting term. You won't see a CPA use this term anywhere. Free cash consists of money that is unspent at the end of each fiscal year by the departments. It rolls into an account called free cash. Free cash also can come from excess revenue the town brings in. So as I explained earlier, the local aid number is unknown. Well, if local aid from the state comes back $100,000 more than we anticipated in the budget we hope you will vote on tonight, that will flow into free cash. Well, for a long period of time, this town was using what the Appropriations Committee felt was too much free cash to balance the budget. So for the last 3 years, the Appropriations Committee has been beating the drum loudly that when we got to fiscal year 15, which starts in July 1 of 2014, it is the goal of the Appropriations Committee to not use any free cash to balance the town budget. We've been telling every board, every committee, and every department that we were going to move to that. And our plan was, you can see in fiscal year 12, was about $1 million. We said we would reduce that to $500,000, which we did in the current year we're in. We said in fiscal year 14 we would go to $250,000. We actually lowered that to $150,000. And so next year, it is our goal that when we stand in front of you, we will use no free cash to balance the town budget. So where are we for financial reserves? You can see the numbers that we have up there, that we have been very cognizant of maintaining financial reserves in case of a rainy day. And I think the next article from capital planning will explain how we hope to use some of those monies for the rainy day involving equipment purchases for the town. But if you approve the budget tonight as presented for fiscal year 14, which starts July 1 of 2013, we will have $4,533,925 in reserve. And as I said, at the end of fiscal year 14, that number might be higher because we might get additional local aid and there might be some turnbacks from departments. So what do we look at and how do we spend our time? We're constantly looking long-term at the financial outlook for the town. And I've put up here just a couple of things that are going to need some addressing by the town over the next couple of years. People are familiar that at the special town meeting last year, there was appropriated $30,000 to study the space needs at Town Hall. There's a report that's been generated. It has not been vetted yet, but it might be an issue that we'll have to work on. Additional capital needs. Capital needs are purchasing equipment, infrastructure improvements, software needed to run the town. Those are all continued capital needs. The school department has been conducting a space study so that they can educate the kids into the future in the way that it needs to be done, and those results will be coming. And one thing the Appropriations Committee spends a great deal of time is talking to departments about sustainability of their wages. So we spend a lot of time with the departments advising them on what we think the town will have available to them and asking them to somewhat moderate that when appropriate. The equipment and technology, I think all of you know in your everyday life, software program maintenance costs continue to go up yearly. There's very little you can do about that, and that's a big nut that the town needs to be aware of. So the long and the short of it, the final slide that I have for you, is what your tax bill currently looks like. So we put up there information from the Massachusetts Department of Revenue. These are average residential yearly tax bills. And as you can see, East Longmeadow is pretty much right in the middle. We're higher than Springfield, higher than Ludlow. We're less than Hamden, less than the statewide number, less than Wilbraham, and I'm happy to say we're much lower than Longmeadow. So I want to end in the people on the Appropriations Committee do yeoman's work. They have your best interest at heart because each and every one of them is also a taxpayer. I live at 2 Leicester Street. I pay the same tax rate you pay. I pay taxes. I want to make sure the dollars that we spend or that I pay, that I get the best benefit for those tax dollars. So I hope you think that we've done a good job looking after your money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Denver, and I would like to just personally thank again the members of the Appropriations Committee for the tremendous investment of time and energy that they put into bringing a recommended budget for you to act upon this evening. And what we will be doing is the same procedure that we have done in the past. I am going to go through the Exhibit A that was part of the warrant, if you have your warrant with you, and I am going to go down the fiscal year 2014 recommended column and read each of those numbers. I will identify which department those numbers go to, and I'm going to keep going until I get to the bottom. If you have any question or want to have a discussion about any one of the line items that I mentioned, then announce question and I will mark that. Once I go through the entire list, we will vote to accept and approve the items that have not been questioned, and then we will go back and deal in order with each of the ones which have been questioned. And by the time we're finished, we will have adopted a budget. So, having said that, I will begin. Education, $27,146,500. Question on education. School committee, $4,200. Health insurance, $4,960,000.
Question.
Question on health insurance. Retirement assessment,
Question.
$2,481,717, and there is a question on that. Principal payments, general fund principal, $2,797,500. Water fund principal, $446,772. Sewer fund principal, $451,737. Community preservation principal, $45,000. Interest payments, general fund interest, $760,345. Water fund interest, $190,095. Sewer fund interest, $153,647. Community preservation interest, $12,840. Administration and highway, $1,603,801. Utilities, gas, electric, and oil, $1,135,000. Building maintenance, $800,399. Snow and ice, $111,636. Waste collections, $57,374. Public safety, police, $2,695,171. Fire, $721,992. Inspectors, $177,774.
Question.
Question on inspectors. Emergency preparedness, $10,189. Administration and finance, information technology, $615,368. Treasurer, clerk, collector, $389,846. Board of Selectmen's office, $322,512. Board of Assessors, $262,738. Town accountant, $233,865. I'm sorry, was there a question?
Yes, sir.
Question on town accountant. Law department, $98,000. Operational support, $45,000. Elections and registration, $41,330. Appropriations committee, $3,000. Town moderator, $650. Thank you. Trash collection, $995,000. Council on Aging, $268,569. Veterans, $108,000. Board of Health, $83,351. Animal Control, $20,970. Library, $652,306. Recreation, $163,309. Cultural, $9,264. Reserve Fund, $395,000. Payroll tax, $455,520. Liability insurance, $343,000. Workers' compensation, $185,000. Planning Board, $130,829. Conservation and Zoning, $4,989. PVPC Assessment, $2,500. Moving to the Water Fund, $1,534,736. Sewer fund, $1,119,258. And that concludes the list. So all those in favor of all of the items which have not been questioned, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. All right, those items have been adopted, so now we go back to the items that have been questioned, and the first one was the education number of $27,146,500. Someone wish to make a question? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Ron Cutler, and thank you to all the boards and the selectmen for your time. And I realize that a lot of people don't understand what it takes to be a public servant. I'd like to thank you all for that. I'd like to, if somebody from the school department could explain to me the increase and exactly where the monies are going, and secondly, if the 1 million was granted, would that result in a tax increase on the residents and their property taxes? And if he's not sure who's representing the school committee tonight, if we could have some other town officials, maybe the town clerk or the town accountant, speak to possible tax increases, property tax increases, if something like this was to go through. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Thompson, and by the way, just as a note, while you're perfectly free to identify yourself when you come to the microphone, it is not required. So you need not identify yourself, but feel free to do so if you wish. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. In personnel services, we have an increase of $832,000. $700,000 of that roughly is contractual. And then we have operational cost increases of $240,000. You want?
Is anybody prepared to speak on the impact on the taxes?
Yeah, I'd like to, if we had any town officials that could speak. Do you know if there would be a tax increase as a result of that?
So we just deal with the budget side of the school department.
Okay.
So I would.
All right, great. Thank you.
Yes, Tom Caliento, town accountant. Ron, yes, there will be a tax increase if his entire budget is presented in its entirety. The tax rate will go up and taxes will go up. I believe the tax rate, based on my calculations, although it's difficult to do right now, we don't have all the answers, will be about $20 or close to $20. Right now it's $18.62.
Mr. Caliente, can that be translated into what the average tax bill for someone might go up just?
I'll translate it into $100,000 worth of value, then you can use your own calculations to figure out how much your house is worth, but so it'll be about a $138 increase per 100,000. That's the max amount. Whether it goes to that amount depends on a few things.
Thank you.
$138 per $100,000 valuation.
Correct.
So, okay, so do the math, 300,000 would be almost $400. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any additional questions? Yes, sir.
I just have a quick question as far as
Could you speak a little bit closer to the microphone, please?
Just a quick question with regards to the figure on the personnel. How much of that is actual raises, and did that have an effect when a new step was introduced, and how much increase was the new step? I believe there was a new step created on the school committee as far as for
Mr. Thompson.
Again, Greg Thompson, Chairman of the School Committee. So, to the question, the additional step that I believe you're referring to was actually realized in this fiscal year. So that's not part of this budget. And the other part of your question, I'm sorry.
You said basically there's $800,000 for personnel. I noticed there's 1.7 positions created.
Correct. So approximately 700,000 is contractual obligations. 90? 790? 709,000. 709,000.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any further questions on the education line?
Can we have a kind of a clarification on the 400,000 for just clerical or administrative costs? Maybe what that actually means. It's quite a lot of money, 400,000 for administrative costs. Just if that's personnel, other school employees in the office.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you're talking about. 400,000. Is that in the warrant somewhere?
Yeah, just trying to clarify. You said 709 for contractual obligations,
Correct.
and then the other 400,000 was for administrative costs.
I'm sorry. Okay, so 832 is the increase in personnel, cost of personnel. 709,000 of that is contractual. So the difference would be that 1.7 FTEs. The other part is operational, 240,000 increase, and those things include special ed increases, our assessment from Lower Pioneer Valley Education Collaborative, maintenance on our buses, legal services are going up, athletic costs, and curriculum renewal is also part of that.
Okay. If I may, what is a normal increase for an average normal increase for the school budget each year? Is there an average? Is this high for the school committee? It's a million.
I'm sorry, some years higher, some years lower.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's,
Okay.
yeah.
You don't know?
I don't know, I'm not sure what your question is. Are some years higher than this year and some years are lower?
Is this unusually high request for the school committee?
No, I would say it's not unusually
Okay,
high.
thank
Yes.
you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will vote on the line item $27,146,500 for the education line in the budget. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Nay. That motion carries. The next one I have questioned was health insurance, the number being $4,960,000. Yes, sir.
Joe Townsend. I noticed that on this budget here, it's percent of the total of health insurance is 14%, and I can't really read the numbers, but it looks like it's about 6.3% increase over last year. As a business owner, I can tell you this, we really need to take a look at the health costs. I have a few questions. One is, what percentage do the town employees pay of their health insurance costs? That's one of my first questions. And I think if it may want to get into line with the private sector, which is usually around 50%. That's my health insurance cost. And my other question was whether or not this amount could be amended tonight if it was not voted on it, or would I have to make a motion for that? But the question I have again is, what percentage do the town employees pay of their health insurance costs right now?
Again, Tom Caliento, town accountant. It's 70% town, 30% employee. Retirees, generally 50-50. So the net result of all of that overall is about 67% town.
Okay, so it's 67. So out of the paycheck every week, 30%, let's just round it off. Let's say it's $100 a week for health insurance premium. Right now, the employee would pay $30 and the town would pay $70?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes, that's it.
go ahead.
Nope, that's it.
All right. So has the town ever looked at bringing it to the 50-50?
It is built into contracts of the various unions throughout the town. So that would have to be a contracted, negotiated outcome based on, the union and the Board of Selectmen and other boards. Whether that has been discussed, you know, I'm not sure because I'm not privy to the.
I have all the contracts, and you could ask
No,
town
I mean,
council.
I guess what I'm saying is whether that has been part of their negotiations, I don't know because I'm not privy to the behind the scenes negotiations.
Well, you're the one who gave me all the contracts. I could tell you that the
I am not included on the negotiation team.
Okay.
May I just ask, maybe for the purposes of clarification, Mr. Caliento, of the $4,960,000, do you know approximately what percentage or amount of that is already contracted for? Has already been part of the contractual negotiations and therefore not subject to modification or not subject to, it's already part of a binding contract?
No, it's all subject to full payment based on those contractual terms. So anything less than that, and I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but would be a contract issue.
Thank you.
Well, then I have one question for town council. That question is, and I've reviewed these contracts, I don't remember what tells you the percentage of what the employee has to pay versus the town.
I'm not sure what your question is.
My question is, he just mentioned that it's a 70-30 split, and I was wondering if it wasn't 70-30, what's holding the town back from going up to 50-50?
I'm not sure I understand your question, Mr. Townsend. Is the question how you would get to a 50-50 split of insurance costs?
What I'm saying is he just mentioned that it's under contract right now, that it's 70-30. I don't remember any of the contracts telling the percentage of the insurance that the employee would be responsible for.
I can't speak to the contracts as I'm not the town's negotiator. I can only tell you that insurance is part of the benefits that municipal employees receive.
Okay.
And that to the extent that there are municipal unions involved, if you are going to alter a municipal benefit, the State Labor Relations Commission or the Joint Labor Management Commission with respect to police and fire will require that the town reach a negotiated settlement with those unions before the percentages that are currently being paid by those employees can be altered.
Okay, so when the town every year gets an increase, they can't say, well, you know, it's jumped up from 100 to 125. Now you're going to have to pay 50% instead of 30. The town can't do that.
As the cost of insurance goes up, the percentage charged to the town and to the employees increases proportionately as to the split in the costs that have been established years ago in East Long Meadow, as far as I understand.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any further discussion on the health insurance line of $4,960,000? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That line item carries. The next question was on retirement assessment, the number being $2,481,717.
And again, part of that question was answered with the last question, but quick summary is this is for the retired employees, and can you just go over the percentages for the retired employees?
Well, there is no set percentage. Basically, Joe, what happens is the amount that we're assessed for the retirement is based on the retirement board. There's a board out there, and it consists of many people throughout the state legislators and so on, and they monitor this. The amount of people that retire from East Long Meadow, we get assessed based on that, based on interest income and investment income of that fund. And the reason why has it increased over the last few years is because in 2008 on, the market went down. So they were getting less income, so different got assessed to us. Okay.
Is there any further discussion on the retirement assessment line item? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That line item carries. The next one on which I have a note is inspectors, $177,774.
Okay, this line here, if you take a look at it, again, I don't have my glasses, I have them on, but this is real fine print. if you look at the total here, my guess is that's for the new employee that's going to be in the inspector's office, and the percentage of increase here is phenomenal. But now this increase here of 59%, again, I can't really make out the percentage, but the dollar amount is huge, and I think it probably doesn't reflect the insurance costs that are going to come along with that employee and the retirement costs that account for 14% of the total budget. So again, I'll vote against this simply because I don't think right now is the time to start adding staff to the building inspector's office, and I like Dan and everything. I feel that we really need to get frugal. We alluded to the town of Long Meadow earlier, and we alluded to the town of how our rates are the same or similar to Long Meadow, similar to Hamden and Wilbraham. What we didn't allude to was the fact that Wilbraham just passed a $35 million budget. So we need to keep this in line when we vote on things like this. And again, those two towns have brand new schools, and that's something that's going to be coming this way.
Any further discussion on that line item? Hearing none, all those in favor of the line item for inspectors of $177,774, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Nay. That line item carries. The next line on which I have a note is town accountant, $233,865.
Again, I guess this one will be similar to the last one. Sorry for taking up your time. It's just really simple here. It's a fifth grade arithmetic. We're going to be adding another employee. We're going to be adding some more health insurance. If you're a business owner, I pay $18,000 a year in health insurance just for me, one person. So I don't pay retirement costs. I can't afford them. So what I'm saying here, this is another person that you're going to add on. These costs don't go away. The insurance costs don't go away. And not only the insurance costs don't go away, the retirement costs don't go away. So again, I guess I'll be alone and vote no against this.
Any further discussion on this particular line item? All right, all those in favor of the town accountant line item of $233,865, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Nay. That motion or that line carries. And I believe that concludes those questions, so I believe we have now adopted the budget. Thank you, the operating budget. Now let's move on to the capital planning part of the budget, Article 3. Let them say something.
I move the town vote to make the following transfers to fund the new fiscal year 2014 capital projects. A $1,036,671 transfer from free cash, account number 013590, and a total of $204,566 from balances of various closed capital projects as illustrated in Exhibit C of the printed warrant. A $76,960 transfer from the Water Fund unreserved fund balance, account number 12-3590, and a total of $98,700 from closed capital project balance as illustrated in Exhibit C of the printed warrant. A $111,413 transfer from the Sewer Fund unreserved fund balance, account number 13-3590, and a $135,000 transfer from the Local Cable Access Revolving Funds unreserved fund balance, account number 2804-3590, as illustrated in Exhibit C of the printed warrant.
Is there a second?
Good evening, folks. My name is Eric Madison. I'm the chairman of the Capital Planning Committee this year. I'm going to try to give you a real quick explanation on what I just read and what we're asking you to approve tonight.
First, I just want to point out the members of the Capital Planning Committee. They put an awful lot of time and effort into this, bringing these recommendations forth to you. Their names are up there. Many of them have been on the Capital Planning Committee for years, and I can tell you that without their institutional knowledge, we wouldn't be able to do the work that we do now. So my thanks out to all the committee members for their hard work this year. The Capital Planning Committee this year looked at a total of 51 projects that totaled $3,598,966 in requests. Our objectives when we look at this are to evaluate each project for urgency, need, and the benefit to the community. We prioritize all the projects submitted based upon the outcome of our evaluation, with the highest priority assigned to number one. Assigned available funds to the highest priorities. We work with all the departments to close completed projects, availing unspent funds for new projects. And we work closely with the Appropriations Committee to establish a budget for new spending. Finally, and ultimately, we bring forth our recommendation to you for approval at the annual town meeting. After an extensive review process of the proposed budgets, each is placed in one of the following categories. Public safety, and some of these are kind of self-explanatory, but that is a category impacting the safety of the public or safety of our employees. Government mandate, which is required for new laws or regulations. Capital infrastructure maintenance, these are our buildings and systems throughout town, the water pipes, sewer pipes, buildings, and so on. Improved operations, this includes any capital outlay that would improve operations already in place in town, or ultimately lower costs associated with continuation of operations. Energy efficiency, and I think you heard Russ Denver with the appropriations refer to this, where the town has implemented many energy efficiency items through the capital budget, and the town is realizing real life savings from those. Quality of life, which is simply the residents' quality of life, things that make living and being in this town better every day. And finally, new operations, and those are any new operations or services presented to the town, or to the Capital Planning Committee. Projects within each category are then prioritized, again, based upon the need, urgency, and benefit. The highest priority projects are matched with available and appropriate funding sources, and I'll get back to that in a minute. Some of our typical funding sources. In the general fund, these are funds raised from taxation that we're all doing here tonight, including free cash and/or debt payments. Water fund, which is revenue generated from residents paying their water bills. Sewer fund, same thing, revenue generated from folks paying their sewer bills. Closed capital projects. And these are funds that remain after previous capital projects you have approved here at town meeting are completed, but they didn't expend all the money completing that project. Under the laws in Massachusetts, we can take those money, you can take those money because you approve it here, and reallocate those monies toward other capital projects. And finally, special accounts, which is revenue raised or specifically for purposes such as the East Long Meadow Cable Access Television Revolving Fund, of which we'll have a request in there tonight for that. So let's get down to the business. The recommended projects for 2014 under the heading of General Fund for the Fire Department. An SCBA air bottle compressor. Quick explanation, SCBA are the air packs that you see the firefighters wear when they go into a fire. They have a special compressor that cleans, filters, and dries the air and compresses it for those bottles. $55,800. A command vehicle for the chief, $46,863. For the school department, electrical upgrades to Meadowbrook School, $400,000. Chiller system repairs. A chiller system, folks, is part of the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system for Birchland Park School, $24,250. Asphalt playground area at Meadowbrook School, $33,333. And a laptop cart and Mimeo views, and the best way to describe these are technology for the classrooms throughout various school buildings, $48,132. For the police department, 2 new police cruisers, $70,000. Department of Public Works, new traffic lights at the intersection of Elm and Maple Shade Avenue, $126,000. And there's one of those public safety examples, folks. The sidewalk fund, $75,000. I just want to explain that real quick. We try to every year put $75,000 into the sidewalk fund. When it builds to a sizable amount, the DPW goes out to bid and does sidewalk development on streets and towns where there are no sidewalks. The last couple of years we did not do this because we had such a tight budget, and we want to get back into this. Dump truck number 5 replacement, $148,000. Truck number 107 replacement, $58,966. Information technology, the camera upgrades, and this includes many buildings, school buildings, and a lot of our municipal buildings. Phase 2, which is the final phase of a multi-year project, 2-year project, $69,250. A storage area network, $35,000. Munis software upgrade. Munis is the software the town uses in all of its accounting and managing of personnel, and it's a town-wide system. $50,400. In the water department, replace the water main on Savoy Avenue, $98,700. Replace truck number 49 with a utility body truck, $76,960. In the sewer department, a trailer-mounted generator, $65,000. And replace truck number 15, $46,413. For the East Longmeadow Cable Access Television Fund, Facilities Improvement Phase 2, $135,000. Our total recommendations to you this evening, folks, under the general funds is $1,241,237. Under the water department funds, $175,650. Under the sewer department fund, $111,413. And from the LCAP fund, $135,000 for total capital recommendations of $1,663,300. The funding sources that we're recommending to you tonight are as follows. For the general fund projects, $204,566 from closed capital projects, previous year's projects with balances. $1,036,671 from free cash. Water fund, $98,700 from closed project balances, $76,960 from water fund reserves. Sewer fund, $111,413 from sewer fund reserves, and East Longmeadow Cable Access Fund, $135,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Madison. And as I did with the Appropriations Committee, I would like to again thank the members of the Capital Planning Committee for the tremendous amount of time and effort they put in on behalf of all of us to make the difficult choices for the various expenditures that we have of a capital nature. I will do the same process as we did with the operating budget. I'm going to go down the various line items from Exhibit C in the column that's entitled Account, essentially repeating many of the all of the line items that Mr. Madison just went through. We will take a vote on on all that have not been questioned. If you have a question on any one of the line items, please indicate that, and I will mark it, and we will come back to it. Okay. The self-contained breathing apparatus air bottle compressor, $55,800. Fire command vehicle, $46,836. Schools electrical upgrades, $400,000. Department of Public Works, Elm and Maple Shade traffic lights, $126,000. Question on that. Police vehicles, $70,000. Camera upgrades, $69,520. Asphalt playground, $33,333. Department of Public Works sidewalk fund, $75,000. Chiller system, $24,250. Storage area network, $35,000. Dump truck number 5, $148,000. Munis, $50,400. Laptop cart and Mimeo views, $48,132. F-550 dump truck, $58,966. Question. From the Water Fund, pickup truck number 49, $76,960. Replace water main Savoy Avenue, $98,700. From the Sewer Fund, F-350 replace truck number 15, $46,413. Trailer mount generator, $65,000. LCAT Facilities Improvement Project Phase 2, $135,000. All those in favor of the items that I have mentioned, with the exception of the two which have been questioned, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Those items carry. The first question I have is on Elm and Maple Shade traffic lights. Sir, could you get to the microphone, please, so everybody can hear your question?
Thank you. I just wonder what's planned for that intersection. That light seems to work pretty good as it is.
Spurek?
That system is almost 25 years old, and we are not able to get parts to replace it, new parts. The company that we contract with that does all our maintenance, the last time it was down for a month because they couldn't get a part. They go out on the internet, try and find used parts, and it's just not able to, we're not able to get any brand new parts to fit that, so it's time to replace it.
I can't believe you can't find parts for a traffic light.
Right.
Well,
I don't think you're trying hard enough, Dan.
Yes, sir.
I just have a general question. I'm trying to learn the system, and one question that I have is, how can you come up with a budget amount without actually knowing what the state is going to give you? And I really don't know, and I'm trying to learn this system, but I'm putting myself, if I'm going to borrow money, I'm gonna first of all want to know how much I really need.
Well, I don't think there's any borrowing being contemplated by this budget, but
to put it in general terms of us, I just don't understand how you can pass a budget or request money or increase taxes without actually knowing what the state's going to give us first.
I will address that generally, but the town accountant will address it with more particularity. It's unfortunate, but it is the situation that we and every other town that has its annual meeting in the spring has to endure, because the state, as long as I can recall, has never had final numbers at the time of the town meeting. And I know that the Appropriations Committee and the Capital Planning Committee, when they prepare the budgets that they recommend to the town meeting, use their best estimates based on prior history, based on what the initial numbers are from the the House budget and the Senate budget, which those numbers are out. They're not final by any means, but they at least give an indication, and it is essentially a best guess. And to the extent that there are shortfalls, then the special town meeting we typically have in the fall addresses some of those. But Mr. Caliento, could you expand on that, please?
Yeah, I think that Jim just stated it pretty well. What we do is there's an exhibit called Exhibit B in this warrant, and we outline the projected revenue sources for the fiscal year, and we spend a lot of time trying to do that. We look at trends. We try to figure out what the state is doing. And in here, you'll see that we recommend a certain amount. It's $11,273,000 from the state. We get different amounts throughout February, March, and April on what direction the state is going. And we get a general idea, however, we're not absolutely sure until it's proved. And as Russ said earlier, it's not approved. But we are reasonably sure that $11,273,000 related to this is pretty close. As far as the other revenues, we just look at annual trends. We try to figure out quantities. We try to figure out services. And in the past, we've been pretty good, pretty accurate at doing it. That's where the operating budget comes from.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Lisa Kessler.
Could you get a little closer to the microphone, please?
Hi, I'm Lisa Kessler. I want to thank you for your service to our town. I'm a proud resident of East Longmeadow. The only thing I'm not proud of are our tennis courts. And I come up here every year and I put in a pitch for our tennis team. I'm very proud of our players from East Longmeadow High School. And I think it's sad that our town can't afford to put in a decent court where our children can be proud of playing. They play in Longmeadow, they play in Ludlow, they play in Wilbraham and Westfield, all over. And when the other teams come here to play, it's just sad. And I'm wondering, I see that it's now ranked number 21. So I'm wondering if maybe next year this is going to be something that's going to be considered and recommended, or are we just waiting to put in a new high school before we renovate our tennis courts? And that'll probably be in another 50 years.
Well, thank you, ma'am. It's not really germane to the issue of the traffic lights, but I'm sure the Capital Planning Committee would welcome your input as they go through the process next year, and we'll consider the tennis courts as a capital expenditure.
Hopefully before my son graduates and all the other kids, but.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. Once again, I'd like to
Could you get closer to the microphone, please?
I'm sorry. Good evening. I'd like to thank all of you for your service. I know it takes a tremendous amount of time. I'm just echoing that other gentleman's question, just to break it down in simpler terms. The state, and I think this is for Mr. Caliento, the state last year funded East Longmeadow approximately $11 million. Is that correct?
Yes, I don't remember the exact number. I think it was about $10.5 million. However, we didn't budget that total amount out. We didn't know it till June. We budgeted $700,000 less.
I guess my question would be, I know that the town's looking for a 3.7% increase, almost $2 million. Would it be fair to say if the state gave us, or if we got an extra $2 million or $2 million more from the state, that our taxes wouldn't go up at all?
Yes, it would. I think that's unlikely this year. However, any increases in state amounts would reduce the amount of property taxes that would have to be levied to cover the budget, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on the traffic lights at Elm and Mapleshade? Hearing none, all those in favor of the $126,000 line item, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That line item carries. The next question I have is for the Department of Public Works dump truck, the amount being $58,966. Yes, sir.
This question was not so much for the Department of Public Works, but I didn't see a place to ask this question. It was on the total, $1,036,000, and the question was for the chair to capital. And my question is this coming from free cash? All this coming from the free cash?
the general fund projects $1,036,671 from free cash, $204,566 transferred from closed capital projects.
Okay, so 1 million's coming from free cash. Now I'm really confused. Maybe Russ can help me out here, because I'm looking at Article 2 on the bottom of the committee's report here. It says, after considering all other sources, we recommend the remaining amount needed to fund the come from free cash, $150,000.
That's the operating budget, sir. This is the
Okay.
capital budget.
Okay.
The operating budget, which is a reoccurring budget every year,
All right.
we're using, you voted on $150,000 to balance that budget tonight.
Okay, all right. Well, I guess the goal then of the appropriation committee, would that goal to use from free cash not be for capital as well? You're using $1 million free cash from?
The goal of the capital planning committee to use, well, it was set at $250,000. We brought before you $150,000 of free cash to balance the operating budget was met. This is a totally different, this is not the operating budget, this is capital expenses.
Okay,
And
again.
when we,
Go ahead.
let me get to the heart of your question, where I think you're going with this. We have several ways of funding capital projects. We can bond, we can go out and borrow $1 million or the $1,036,000 to fund this. It's been the position of the capital planning and the appropriations committee to not incur any new debt until we pay down some of our existing debt. So we bring before you tonight this proposal using free cash out of our reserves, and I think you'll recall Mr. Denver's demonstration up there with the available funds in free cash. In other words, it's using our savings account to pay for some of the capital projects. What you're referring to is using our savings account to pay our monthly bills, if you will, which is not a good idea.
No, I agree. That's not what I'm referring to. It's just, I thought that the $55 million here on the bottom of Article 2 here, where it says, after considering all other sources, we recommend the remaining amount needed to fund would be not to exceed $150,000.
Right, but as the chair of the capital planning committee has indicated, that's the operating budget,
Okay.
not the capital planning budget.
Okay.
That goal
Thank
of the
you.
appropriations committee is not necessarily shared by the capital planning committee, the two independent committees.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any further discussion on the dump truck? Okay, all those in favor of the line item of $58,966, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That line item carries, and the capital budget has now been adopted.
Yay.
Article 4.
Article 4. I move the town vote to approve interdepartment transfers from the fiscal year 13 operating budget as follows. Transfer from trash collection, account number 01-430, to health insurance, account number 01-914, in the amount of $40,000. Transfer from liability insurance, account number 01-945, in the amount of $15,000 to worker compensation insurance, account number 01-912, the amount of $15,000. And transfer from the health department, account number 01-519, in the amount of $15,000 to workers' compensation insurance, account number 01-912, the amount of $15,000.
Is there a second?
Good evening, Paul Federici, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, once again. Passing this motion allows the town to transfer funds from accounts that have a surplus at the fiscal year end to accounts that have a deficit.
Is there any discussion with respect to the motion under Article 4? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries. Article 5.
Mr. Moderator, there'll be no action taken on Article 5.
Thank you. No action on Article 5. Article 6.
I move the town vote to raise and appropriate by borrowing or otherwise $587,018 for the construction, reconstruction, and/or maintenance of public ways, said funds to be reimbursed by the Commonwealth and expended under the jurisdiction of the Board of Public Works.
Mr. Burek, a technical point. I'm told that the motion should not include the phrase "to raise," so it should be, I move that the town vote to appropriate by borrowing or otherwise. Would you entertain restating your motion, and we'll see if we can get it seconded?
I move the town vote to appropriate $587,018 for the construction, reconstruction, and/or maintenance of public ways to be expended under the jurisdiction of the Department of Public Works, and said funds to be reimbursed by the Commonwealth and expended under the jurisdiction of the Board of Public Works.
Do you have any discussion, sir?
Very simply, this is just the money that we expect to get from the Chapter 90 from the state, and we just have to appropriate it to be expended by the Department of Public Works.
Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
I'm curious if any of this money is going to get spent resurfacing Elm Street. Come on, let's hear it.
Glad you asked that question.
It's a gateway to our town. It's a piece of crap, pardon my English.
I'm glad you asked.
You've got to stop patching the patches.
We have been trying for the last 15 years to get this through the state highway for complete reconstruction. If you remember back about 15 years ago when we got chosen to be put on the list, we came to the town because before they resurfaced and reconstructed the roads, they wanted the water mains and sewer mains to make sure that they were up to date and not being replaced in another 5 years after they replaced resurfaced the whole road and reconstructed it. We came to you at that time, we got the okay, we did the work. We've been trying for 15 years to get this project moved up the list for highway projects. A few years ago, they came to us and said in order to stay on the list, you will have to convert your plans from decimal system to metric system, which cost us a significant amount of money, but we did that in order to stay on the state highway list. We are getting to the point now where we don't feel that this is ever going to happen. This viaduct in Springfield is going to suck all the money out of the state highway money. That will be the Western Mass Big Dig. So as you can see at this town meeting just prior, we just appropriated the money to replace the traffic light, which was going to be part of that project. We are going to be very closely in the next year looking at what we're going to have to do with that road. And I believe we will take it off the list. That's not official, we didn't take a vote on it, but it's my feeling that we'll just take it off the list and we'll have to look at redoing Elm Street ourselves, because I don't think we'll ever get the money and we can't wait any longer. We've just been putting Band-Aids on it, waiting to get the state money.
Any further discussion? All those in favor then of the motion under Article 6, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries. Article 7.
I move that the town vote to reestablish a local cable access revolving fund for fiscal year 2014, which fund shall be separate from the general fund pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, for the purpose of receiving and expending monies from public and private sources in order to fund the local cable access program activities, as administered by the community established for such purposes, without further appropriations. Said funds to be expended in an amount not to exceed $132,000 during the fiscal year as approved by the Board of Selectmen.
Is there a second?
Second.
Sorry, bear with me for 1 minute. This motion is to continue the account established for our local cable access revolving fund. This is an account set up to receive funds not generated by taxation. The fee that you pay on your local charter bill, this is forwarded back to LCAT for expenses. This does not cost you any additional tax dollars.
Is there any question or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries. Sir, did you wish to make a motion?
Yes, Mr. Moderator.
Could you speak closer to the microphone, please?
I can,
Thank
and
you.
I will.
Thank you on both.
My name is Jim Lilly. I'm president of the Tenants Association of Brownstone Gardens, and because we have a large contingent of elderly senior citizens here tonight, and we're all getting a little bored, I would like to request that Articles 17 and 18 be moved up. Thank you.
Is there a second? All right, ladies and gentlemen, our town bylaw allows for such a motion to be made. It is debatable, so we can have discussion, and then it will require, in order to accomplish moving Articles 17 and 18 up to act on those now, will require a 2/3 vote to do so. So, is there any discussion with respect to the motion to move the Articles 17 and 18 up till now? Yes, there is, I believe.
Mr. Moderator, I question, if we move these articles up and we lose the members, the senior members that are here specifically to vote on this, will we lose a quorum to continue business?
Well, I don't know the answer to that, sir. I don't know how many people might choose to stay and continue with the festivities. Our quorum requirement is 150 people. Under parliamentary law and town meeting time, which governs town meeting in this town, once the quorum was established, it is presumed to continue to exist until questioned. If there is a question of a quorum, then we stop the proceedings and take account. And if there isn't a quorum, we have to stop the proceedings completely and adjourn to another date and time. So to answer your question is, it would be a function of how many people left and how many people remained, and if a question of quorum was raised at that point in time. Are there any further questions with respect to this particular article? Now again, it requires a 2/3 vote. If it is not clear to me that 2/3 has been obtained, we will need to do a teller count, which means we will shut the doors. Everybody will remain seated and stand as directed so the tellers can take account. All those in favor of the motion to move Articles 17 and 18 forward to be acted upon now, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Nay. Passes. All right, let me do it a little differently. All those in favor of moving the articles forward, please stand. Okay, all, please be seated. All those opposed to moving the articles forward, please stand. Wow. I'm afraid I'm going to have to do a teller count on this one. It's close, but I can't tell for sure. So I would ask the Sergeant at Arms to close the doors, and I'd ask the clerk to summon the tellers forward, and we'll do a count. I will ask people to stand, those in favor to stand in just a minute. All right, ladies and gentlemen, all those that are in favor of moving Articles 17 and 18 forward, please stand and remain standing until the teller indicates that you may sit down.
Inward Commons, those are
Edward Commons is Housing Authority.
Brownstone is private as far as I know.
It serves our seniors. CPC money. Serves our seniors and the need is there and the money is. They approved it.
So,
Yes.
so after it passes, the Board of Governors, I presume that's going to have Brownstone at the top and say, look, we need to get some kind of agreement with this now. What do you say? We can't sell the generators a year later or something?
Right.
You know, that kind of thing.
Right, for profit. Right. Okay. Like a memorandum of understanding.
Well, it'll be
Yeah.
more formally,
Yeah,
it's a state
okay.
specific.
Good. Ay, ay, ay.
Okay, all those that are opposed to moving Articles 17 and 18 forward, please stand and remain standing until the teller indicates that you may be seated.
Oh, am I supposed to stand up? Sorry. Losing votes. Doing it on principle. I was supposed to stand up and read. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. This goes here. This goes here.
While that count is being tabulated, I do want to indicate that should the motion pass, and after those articles are acted upon, we still have much important business to be attended to, and I would urge as many people to remain in the hall and continue in this important process. As I mentioned earlier, and as you've seen thus far, the boards, committees have done a tremendous amount of work to get us to where we are this night. We are acting as legislators, and what we act upon tonight will have important consequences for the operation of the town for the next year. So I would urge you to remain until the business of the meeting is completed, one way or the other. Ladies and gentlemen, my faith in my ability to judge a two-thirds vote has been sustained basically by the count. There are a total of 200 people who were counted. 130 voted in favor and 70 voted opposed. That means that 65% voted in favor, 35% did not. 66 and 2/3 is what is needed for a 2/3 vote, so that motion fails. We will continue in the order of the warrant.
You get to go next.
Article 8.
Okay, so we'll move this right along. My name is Deborah Boronsky, a Board of Selectmen. Article 8, I move that the town vote to reestablish a Center School Park revolving fund for fiscal year 2014, which fund shall separate from the general fund pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, for the purpose of receiving and expending monies from public and private sources in order to fund the Center School Hill Park development activities as administered by the East Long Meadow Cultural Affairs Council, without further appropriation, said funds to be expended in the amount not to exceed $2,000 during the fiscal year as approved by the Board of Selectmen.
Is there a second?
This motion allows us to, the Center Street Park, to receive and expend monies collected. As this is a revolving fund, it is necessary to reestablish it annually.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries unanimously. Article 9.
Article 9. I move the town vote to reestablish a solid waste disposal revolving fund for fiscal year 2014, which fund shall be separate from the general fund pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, for the purpose of receiving and expending monies from public and private sources in order to fund the solid waste disposal program as administered by the committee established for such purpose. Without further appropriation, said funds to be expended in an amount not to exceed $50,000 during the fiscal year as approved by the Board of Selectmen.
Is there a second?
Passing this motion allows the town to receive and expend funds collected from sources other than town tax revenue. As a revolving fund, this fund must be reestablished annually.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries unanimously. Article 10.
I move the town vote to reestablish a Council on Aging revolving fund for fiscal year 2014, which fund shall be separate from the general fund pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws 44, Section 53E and a half, for the purpose of receiving and expending monies from public and private sources in order to fund general programming activities of the Council on Aging as administered by the committee established for such purposes. Without further appropriation, said funds shall be expended in the amount not to exceed $100,000 during the fiscal year as approved by the Board of Selectmen.
Is there a second?
This article allows the Council on Aging to receive and expend monies collected. As this is a revolving fund, it must be reestablished annually.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries unanimously. Article 11.
I am Arthur McGuire, Chairman of the Board of Library Trustees. I move the town vote to reestablish an East Longmeadow Public Library revolving fund for fiscal year 2014, which fund shall be separate from the general fund pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, for the purpose of receiving and expending monies from public and private sources paid by borrowers for library overdue fines as administered by the East Longmeadow Board of Library Trustees without further appropriation. Said funds to be expended in an amount not to exceed $15,000 during the fiscal year as approved by the Board of Selectmen.
Is there a second?
This is once again a revolving fund, as you've heard, and is issued or brought to you each year by the Library Board of Trustees.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries unanimously. Article 12.
Hi, I'm Angela Thorpe, Board of Selectmen. I move the town vote to transfer from free cash, account number 01-3590, the amount of $17,500 to expend for the 4th of July 2014 Independence Parade under the cultural budget for a warrant article, account number to be determined.
Is there a second?
2 years prior, this expenditure was part of our general budget. For the purpose of transparency, the request has been broken out and is being presented in this separate article.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries unanimously. Article 13.
Marty Grudgeon, Chair of the Board of Assessors. I move the town vote to transfer from free cash, account number 013590, the amount of $35,000 for the purpose of purchasing, installing, and training expenses for replacement evaluation software to be expended under the jurisdiction of the Board of Assessors under the Assessor's budget for a warrant article account number to be determined.
Is there a second?
Currently, the Board of Assessors utilizes software that was installed in the 1980s. We are looking to upgrade to today's standards. It is a one-time fee. It'll benefit homeowners as well as professionals who use our website and our own board. And I'd like to thank the seniors for sticking around for this exciting article.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries. Article 14.
Article 14. I move the town vote to transfer from free cash, account number 01-3590, the amount of $2,500 to purchase weapons by the police department under the police department budget for a warrant article account number to be determined.
Is there a second?
This motion is to allow the police department to purchase 2 AR-15 semi-automatic patrol rifles to be placed in 2 cruisers.
Does anybody have any questions with respect to this article? Does anybody have any questions with respect to the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries. Article 15.
Hi, Angela Thorpe, Board of Selectmen again. To our seniors, to Mr. Moderator, there will be no action on this. Congratulations, seniors.
No action on Article 15. Article 16.
George Kingston, Chair of the Community Preservation Committee, as a representative of the Conservation Commission. I move the town vote to accept the recommendations of the Community Preservation Committee and appropriate from the Community Preservation Fund for fiscal year 2014 from revenues estimated of $230,000 allocated as follows: 5% allocated to the administrative expenses, 10% allocated to Historic Resource Reserve, 10% allocated to Community Housing Reserve, 10% allocated to Open Space Reserve, and 65% allocated to the undesignated General Reserve.
Is there a second? Go ahead, sir. Do you wish to make a presentation?
No.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions with respect to the motion made under Article 16? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries. Article 17.
I move the town vote to accept the recommendations of the Community Preservation Committee and appropriate from the Community Preservation Fund Community Housing Reserve the amount of $160,000 for the purpose of purchasing and installing generators, including all associated electrical work at the Inward Commons, Village Green, and Quarry Hill community buildings.
Is there a second?
This proposal is to put a generator for the community room in each of our 3 senior housing developments in town that are town-owned. These are under the authority of the East Long Meadow Housing Authority. This will allow our seniors to remain close to their apartments when we do have power failures, not having to truck down to Birchland Park, and they can stay nearby and stay warm and have something to eat and have some light.
Ladies and gentlemen, at the time the warrant was printed, the capital planning did not have sufficient information to make a recommendation one way or the other. I am advised that subsequent, they have received that information and the Capital Planning Committee has voted to recommend the passage of this motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries. Article 18.
I move the town vote to accept the recommendations of the Community Preservation Committee and appropriate from the Community Preservation Fund Community Housing Reserve the amount of $60,000 for the purpose of purchasing and installing a generator, including all associated electrical work at the Brownstone Gardens community building.
Is there a second?
This is a similar article to the previous one, except it's for Brownstone Gardens. As you know, Brownstone Gardens is not town-owned, it's privately owned. However, under the Community Preservation Act, because it does provide affordable community housing, they are eligible for support funds for the facility, and that's how we're asking you to expend these funds.
Likewise, at the time the warrant was printed, the Capital Planning Committee did not have sufficient information to make a recommendation one way or the other. They subsequently did receive that information and have voted to recommend passage of the motion. Is there any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Yes, sir. It's okay.
This is a privately owned business, am I correct? Business. I call it a business.
It's a nonprofit organization that is set up to provide housing for seniors at both below market rate and low market rate rates.
But somebody's making money. It's a business.
No, no one's making money on it. It's a nonprofit organization.
Okay. Now, if we buy this generator, this comes from
the Community Preservation Fund.
Percentage that's added onto my tax rate.
Along with the state match, that's correct.
All right. And how much of this project is being electrified?
The community room.
Just the community?
Just the community room. It's the same as at the other places. To put generators in for the entire complex would be absolutely unaffordable.
Okay.
This provides a place where they can gather and stay warm, charge their cell phones, okay, and still be near their apartments, so if they have pets, they can go back and take care of them.
Thank you for the information.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries. Article 19.
Article 19. I move the town vote to accept the recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee and appropriate from the Community Preservation Fund, Community Housing Reserve, the amount of $5,000 for the purpose of preparing an application for listing the Norcross House on the National Register of Historical Places.
Ladies and gentlemen, his microphone wasn't working for probably the most operative part, which was the amount. And just in case you did not hear Mr. Page, the amount being requested from the Community Preservation Fund Community Housing Reserve is $5,000. Is there a second?
Mr. Moderator? Yes. Can we change from the location from the Historical Reserve?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm told that the name of the reserve, which was in the motion, was inaccurate. So since we haven't yet acted on the motion will be rescinded and restated by Mr. Page.
I move the town vote to accept the recommendations of the Community Preservation Committee and appropriate from the Community Preservation Fund Historical Reserve the amount of $5,000 for the purpose of preparing an application for the listing the Norcross House on the National Registry of Historical Places.
Is there a second? Go ahead. Does anybody have any questions with respect to the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries. Article 20.
I move the town vote to accept the recommendations of the Community Preservation Committee and appropriate from the Community Preservation Fund Community Historic Reserve the amount of $25,000 for the purpose of converting to digital format the town's historical documentation.
Is there a second?
Right now, all of the town's archives, including newspaper articles, not only official town documents, but newspaper articles and other documents related to the history of the town, exist only in hard copy in the historical room at the library. They are largely inaccessible because they're packed away in boxes for storage. They're not really well indexed, and it's hard to find anything. The proposed monies will be spent to have these documents scanned and organized so that they will be available to anyone, either initially through the library computer, the computer in the library, and hopefully eventually over the web, so that those documents, which nobody can really get to right now, will be available to town residents.
Are there any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Oh, sorry, do you have a question, sir?
In my role as library trustee and a visit to the Boston Public Library, they received a grant, I understand, to do this very thing for the entire state. Is that true, or have we looked into that?
I have to defer that to a member of the Historical Commission.
Does anybody from the Historical Commission wish to speak on it? I guess not. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Nay. That motion carries. Article 21.
Article 21. I move that the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to convey a parcel of vacant land containing about 4,835 square feet on Auburn Street, as shown as lot number 9 on a plan of lots at Pleasant View Heights dated July 1914, and recorded in the Hampden County Registry of Deeds in Book of Plans 4, page 61, for the sum of $26,600.
Is there a second?
This particular piece of land was deemed surplus, and a bid process took place to determine if there were any parties interested in purchasing the property. There were 2 bids received, and the town accepted the highest bid with the understanding that the final conveyance could not take place without town approval.
Yes, sir.
Who was the highest bid?
What, the name?
Yes.
Public knowledge, right?
I assume so.
It's public knowledge.
It was Rocco Carabetta.
Ladies and gentlemen, as a conveyance of land, this requires a 2/3 vote. So if it is, if we need to do a teller count, we'll need to close the doors and do so. Is there any discussion or any further questions?
Was this printed in the paper for 2 weeks? I mean...
Was what printed in the paper for 2 weeks?
Yes, it was.
It was, okay. And there was 2 bids on the property?
Yes, there were.
Okay.
Again, a 2/3 vote is called for as a conveyance of real estate. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries unanimously. Article 22.
I move that the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into leases of town-owned property with telecommunications companies for terms of in excess of 5 years to provide communication services.
Is there a second?
This will allow the town to enter into proposed multi-year contracts so we may continue to provide the communication services that we're all so used to receiving.
Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries unanimously. Article 23.
I move that the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to grant an easement to the National Grid over land under the control of the Board of Public Works on Summers Road, bound as described as follows. The certain parcel of land containing approximately 8,752 square feet of land, or 0.201 acres, most particularly bound as described as follows. Beginning at a point of land north 45 degrees, 58 minutes, 50 seconds, east a distance of 221 and 86 100ths, 221.86 feet from the northerly side of Summers Road, and hence north 13 degrees, 20 minutes, 50 seconds, east a distance of 218 and 57 100ths. Along, land, this was a lot easier when they gave it to me earlier. It was one paragraph. Or formerly of Massachusetts Electric Company, and hence north 8 degrees, 19 minutes, 26 seconds, east a distance of 116.52 feet along land or formerly of the town of East Long Meadow, and thence south 82 degrees, 27 minutes, 29 seconds, west a distance of 31.19 feet along land or formerly of Massachusetts Electric Company, and thence south 8 degrees, 19, I'm going to get you guys for this one, 19 minutes, 26 seconds, west a distance of 153.66 feet along land now or formerly of the town of East Long Meadow, and thence south 10 degrees, 59 minutes, 38 seconds, west a distance of 198.32 feet along said land now or formerly of the town of East Long Meadow, and one more, thence north 45 degrees, 58 minutes, 50 seconds, east a distance of 32.90 feet along land or formerly of Massachusetts Electric Company to the point of the beginning.
Could you repeat that? Is there a second?
Second. Phew, I tell you, I feel like that's freshman orientation. Since Town Council has been working with the National Grid and the DPW, I will refer any questions that you may have to them.
I guess I would have one question. Since the land is under the control of the Board of Public Works, I assume the Board of Public Works is in favor of this motion? Yes, they are. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
Why are we doing this?
Reasonable question. Recently, last year, it was discovered by National Grid, a successor entitled to Mass Electric Company, that a line of poles that the electric company has used that's on Department of Public Works property for 50 years or better was improperly located and was not located within the existing easement that the electric company has over the town land. It was off by about 10 or 15 feet. And rather than take those poles down, the company requested that they be given an easement to allow the poles to remain. In addition to that, in the course of negotiating this, the Department of Public Works discovered that some of their storage facilities, a salt shed, I believe, for one, is located within the boundaries of the existing easement that the electric company has over the Department of Public Works property. And so, as a solution, the parties negotiated an agreement where the town would request town meeting to allow the DPW and the Board of Selectmen to grant an easement to National Grid, and National Grid has agreed to allow the town to retain the structures that it has erected over the last 50 or 60 years within the National Grid easement and not require them to be removed.
I thought there might be a few dollars involved, but it looks like we're trading off.
Are there any additional questions? As a conveyance, as an easement is a form of conveyance, this requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries unanimously. Article 24.
I move the town vote to amend the general bylaws of the town of East Long Meadow to establish a personnel policy committee, all as set forth in Article 24 of the warrant, and that said reading be waived.
Is there a second?
This article will allow the town an opportunity to pull together representation from all of our town departments so they may work together to create a unified standard policy and procedure manual from which we may evaluate, establish goals, and measure the performance of our town employees. The town of East Long Meadow has more than 140 employees that it manages, and currently no personnel policies to speak of. At last year's town meeting, there was a request for funds to support a consultant to help with this task, and it was decided by the townspeople that they did not want to fund that position. This article is meant to offer the town of East Long Meadow an opportunity to begin that process, that much-needed process in putting personnel policies into place for the fairness of our employees and the town itself.
Is there any discussion?
I just have one question, and not that it's going to matter, but as former chairman of that policy committee, I think that I see how you went to each department to get a department head to represent. I think you probably should have relied a little bit more on. You have two members from the public that you're
Will be appointed.
Okay, I think you probably want to lean towards getting maybe 4 members or 5 members, or just instead of having all employees being on the personal policy committee. But you've already made your decision, so I'm going to.
Are there any further questions? Yes, sir. One of you please speak.
I was really looking for a night off tonight, so I had to come up here. Not to be redundant, but to go back on the historical process, who and how did the prior committee get disbanded? Because I don't remember there was a bylaw. Right? And it's, if you want to just say generically, it was a...
I do not have a history on that, Peter. I apologize. It was a great committee from what I hear. It did a lot of great things. As to its demise, it's not something that I can speak to. If someone else would like to attempt to answer that, I don't know.
Okay, appreciate that. With regards to section paragraph A and all the titles of the departments,
yes,
is it your intent to have department heads serve in that capacity? And the reason is, let's say if someone volunteers to apply for that position, why would they want to not work with a decision maker?
So it would be my hope that it would be the department head, but the bylaw, here it says that 1 member elected annually in July with his term ending, that person would be elected by its board or board of authority. So there would be no guarantee, but it would be my assumption that it would be the leader of that particular department and or his or her designee.
Okay, I mean, I appreciate that answer, and the bottom line is, well, just a quick rewind. On the prior consultant, by the way, we were told that the manuals were completed. So I don't know the status of that, but some of the department heads probably know about that, and I think it would be in their best interest in the Board of Selectmen to make that a mandatory assignment of the deployment of department heads to finish that project, and then perhaps transition into an HR position down the road. So it would be in their best interest to serve in that. The second question I had, or the last question on the second page of my page, you kind of tie the hands of the committee by just saying that no one's salary can be decreased. Can you give some basis for that?
So I believe the understanding here should be that we want to establish policies going forward that today someone in a position may or may not be receiving pay or benefits that we might not agree with. And going forward, if someone were to take that position, we would have standards in place so that when you were hired, you knew you were starting no lower than A and no higher than B. So to take something away from someone who is already there wouldn't seem quite fair, and
Well,
that's just the opinion of this particular select person.
I realize that.
Makes it a little bit easier moving forward, but again, this committee would be charged with looking at the various classifications and pay levels and making recommendations. And if you do read the entire article, it says that any changes in classification would have to come to town meeting and be voted on. So this group would not have control, so to speak, but would advise, similar to the Appropriations Committee would say, we agree with that, we don't agree with that, and be used as a resource.
Sure. Just a quick follow-up. I mean, there are systems that allow maybe a cap, no more than a 10% decrease, because if you're going to reclassify, you shouldn't have constraints.
So when this passes, I'm sure you'll let Mr. Moderator know that you're one of the two people who want to be involved in the committee.
That's advertising, huh?
Sir, could we let some of the other speakers?
And I will, Mr. Moderator. Yeah,
well, could we do that now, please?
My last point is that.
Could we do that now, please? Because one of those gentlemen might have the same question you have, and then if they don't, we can circle back to you.
I certainly yield.
Thank you. Mr. Kingston.
Thank you. George Kingston, as chair of the planning board in the last year, I can say that the Board of Selectmen did not go to each of the other 6 boards. They did this on their own without consulting any of the other boards. The first time we saw this was when it showed up in the town meeting warrant. The second thing is it's my understanding that this will not affect 140 people. It will only affect the 18 non-union, non-school employees. Is that correct?
The intention, you're asking me, yes? The intention of this is not only for us to use this as a tool with our department heads, but to encourage our department heads to use it as a tool with all of their employees.
So the union employees as well?
The union employees are not part of this particular article.
You said that you want the department heads to use it with their employees who are members of the union, but the union is not part of this article. Explain, please.
Less the union employees, George.
We have 140 non-union employees? Is that correct?
I stand corrected.
We have 18. Is that correct?
Can someone help me with the actual number of employees?
Non-union, 18's about right. If not,
You're correct.
Okay, so this only applies to 18 people. I also want to point out that this committee will not only be putting forward policies, but will be ruling on individual recommendations for salary increases, a role that is currently the purview of the independent elected boards. And again, I don't think this has been given enough consideration by the other 6 boards involved. And I just want to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you for your opinion, George.
Yes, sir.
I'm Charlie Gray. I'm the current vice chair of the Board of Library Trustees. I would associate myself with Mr. Kingston's remarks. He's right on. I do not want to dwell on stuff. I would just say that the intent is clear, and it's probably a very noble intent. So I think you're thinking well about that, but I have real problems with the structure of this warrant article. First of all, and I will be brief, I don't want to be redundant. It's late and people are tired, probably getting a little cranky. I don't believe that this is fair to the 18 employees. To set up a group of people, a number of whom have no idea what these people are doing day in, day out. There are boards that are responsible and are in fact elected or appointed to do exactly the things that are recommended here as far as pay, establishing performance criteria, performance appraisals, assessments, and that kind of thing. I believe it's scary to read, as I did in the warrant, and I would echo Mr. Kingston's point that there has not been any public hearing on this. There hasn't been any visit to the principals of the various committees or boards, and there just is a general lack of information, frankly, out there in the community. But to say, for example, that review all requests for increases in compensation, benefits, changes in employees' job classifications, and report its position in favor or opposed to the Board of Authority making the request, the Appropriation Committee, and if applicable, the town meeting? Spare me. Lastly, the comment has been made that these individuals will represent the entities that are appointing them. That may be so. On the other hand, the very last paragraph says, the actions and votes of a committee member shall not require nor be subject to approval by the Board of Authority, to approval of his Board of Authority. So, do they represent the Board of Authority or do they not? I just would, in closing, say I spoke to a long time, in fact, lifetime member of our town. And this individual said, you know, of all the challenges we face in our town, he was speaking to me as my role as vice chair of the library board of trustees. The library is not one of them. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm here to say that this new organizational structure that's been proposed leaves the question of whether there might be unintended consequences of a new arrangement of people drawn from the community by the moderator and other techniques that have been arranged here. I feel there's been a loss of transparency with the planning since none of the boards had a chance to review it. And I don't think much vetting has been done, and in particular, I understand that the Board of Selectmen themselves did not discuss this issue before it was approved for the warrant. I agree with the previous questioners on the topics that they presented as well.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Mr. Moderator, I stand in strong support of the concept of this warrant article. I'm probably the most senior former selectman here, and until about 2002, 2003, we had a personnel policy committee of probably all of these elected boards. It was a volunteer group, but we cooperated. And the reason it was strong and important was because we came not only to a common decision on what salary increases would be across the board, but that led us to employ an independent contractor who served as an advisor for regrading purposes, comparing other towns, their employees, their department heads. The cost to the town was very minimal. I know that the town in recent years has been opposed to the spending of one full-time employee for that purpose, but why we disbanded the Personnel Policy Committee, I don't have an answer. I know that it worked well. I think that there has to be more thought into what is laid out before us. I think the concept is well worth it because rather than having individual boards set ad hoc salary increases, and also the Personnel Policy Committee would also handle regrades of union employees, which meant that if a department head suggested that the qualifications needed for a certain position warranted an increase in their salary, that would also come before the Personnel Policy Committee. So I applaud that we're going back to, I think, a process that worked very well for the town. I think it saved a lot of money because we didn't have different boards who didn't have the expertise and the objectiveness to make those decisions. But I think some refinement has to go into this article, because I thought I heard a comment that you might include department heads as part of the membership.
He was asking.
Yeah, and that was always a no-no. All right? The bosses were in control, and we met with the employees, worked things out. But, so I think some refinement. The concept is great. It was very worthwhile, and I suggest.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Mike Carabetta. As a current member of the Planning Board, I think this would be good. I think it would allow more transparency for the voters. I also believe it would increase continuity between the boards as far as discussions on what actions they'd be taking, where problems are or aren't. It would allow that many more people to discuss it and move forward and make better recommendations based on a smaller amount of people. So therefore, I am in favor of this.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Again, as former chairman of this committee was around in 2006 or 7, I believe. And again, I'm not against the committee. I think it's a great idea, like Selectman Levine just alluded to. However, I think it needs to come back for the town. You may want to take another look at this.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah. One last final question. How did you come up with 2 at-large? I mean, how do you expect to get a balance? 2 versus 7.
So 9 is an uneven number.
Okay.
Trying not to overload, any committee of any large size becomes more cumbersome. So trying to represent all of the departments as well as add a voice from the outside.
Okay. So last year we experienced a $20,000 increase for the building inspector. It sounds to me that this article would have no impact in preventing that. Is that true?
I can't answer that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion made under Article 24 with respect to the establishment of a Personnel Policy Committee, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Nay. That motion fails. Article 25.
Good evening. I'm Michael Przbilowicz of the East Long Meadow Planning Board. I move that the town vote to amend the East Long Meadow zoning bylaw 1991 revision pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, by adding a new Section 6, temporary moratorium on medical marijuana treatment centers, and by amending the table of contents to add said section, all set forth in Article 25 of the warrant, and that the reading be waived.
Is there a second?
This article will allow a temporary moratorium on medical marijuana treatment centers until the date of June 20th, 2014, as allowed by the state of Massachusetts.
Is there any discussion?
Not really.
Does anybody think the grass is greener on the other side? This is a proposed zoning bylaw amendment, so it will require a 2/3 vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries by 2/3. Article 26.
Good evening. My name is Sandro Meccia. I move that the town
vote to amend the East Long Meadow zoning bylaw 1991 revision pursuant to MGL Chapter 40A by amending Section 5 of the floodplain overlay district regulations as set forth in Article 26 of the warrant, and that the reading be waived.
Is there a second?
Second. Basically, what we're doing with this bylaw is just redoing the maps. We're digitizing them to have an easier viewing, and it's a requirement to purchase flood insurance for your home.
Is there any discussion? Again, as a proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw, this requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Oh, I'm sorry, there's a question. Go ahead. Speak in the microphone, please.
I just want to inform people, because I live near wetlands, and I got flood insurance for my own home. I thought it was a wise thing to do, and I don't know if this has anything to do with what we're talking about or not, but just as a point of information, to get flood insurance, if you don't have water coming in over your house, if you have water in your basement, it's not covered by FEMA flood insurance. If you have water seeping up underneath your house, it's not covered by flood insurance. So when we had water in our basement, because the water was in our basement, we had flood insurance, but we didn't get any coverage. And we had flood insurance for 10 years and paid into that policy. So I don't know what good flood insurance was for us. So.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor of amending the zoning bylaw as stated in the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries unanimously. Article 27.
I move that the town vote to amend the East Long Meadow zoning bylaw 1991 revision pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 48, by amending Section 8 definitions, all as set forth in Article 27 of the warrant, and that the reading be waived. For the Planning Board, Michael Carabetta.
Is there a second?
Second.
Article 27 is an article to clarify definitions either not provided or that are confusing. With regard to the area and facility for sporting activities, currently the bylaws do not allow areas and facilities for sporting activity. However, there is no definition as to what these facilities actually are. The reason these facilities are not allowed is simply because the infrastructure of the town would not be able to handle the massive influx of vehicular traffic to support such a facility. The definition is for clarity only and is not to be interpreted as permissible for that reason. As far as the other definitions contained in this article, they're simply for clarification in existing definitions.
Are there any questions or is there any discussion? Okay, again, as a zoning bylaw change, a 2/3 vote is required. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries. Article 28.
I move that the town vote to amend the East Long Meadow zoning bylaw 1991 revision pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, by amending Section 3.3 additional use, dimensional and density regulations, by removing Section 3.302 fences or walls in its entirety and replacing with language and diagrams, all as set forth in Article 28 of the warrant, and that the reading be waived.
Is there a second?
Second.
This warrant article originally came about through the Zoning Review Committee. They found some problems with the existing clarity of fences and walls, and through the Zoning Review Committee and the Planning Board, through multiple sessions, we went through and broke down. There's a couple minor changes in what's there now and what we're asking. The first would be requiring a building permit from the building commissioner for boundary fences. I think that's something that we need to do. There's too many fences being put on neighbors' property. Most of the rest of it is pretty much the same. What we did was add a couple diagrams in for clarity purposes.
Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
The building permit is new for fences? That doesn't exist currently?
It's my understanding that currently on a fence 6 foot or greater in height, you need a building permit. Right
Currently?
now,
Okay.
Right now, the way it is. What we're asking is that boundary fences that are going to be put on the boundary line, would also require a building permit.
So will that require a plot plan as well to get a building permit?
It requires, from the way I understand it right now, it does require, the building inspector has the option of asking for a plot.
For a survey?
It's
Potentially, yeah.
actually, the way it's worded, it's a plot plan.
A plot plan. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
How is this a change over what is currently? Like, is it still so many feet off of your property line, or now it has to be set back as far as your house is?
What we're asking for right now is that you're given 6 inches to your property line. The way the original one is worded is all fences must be at least 6 inches from any lot line. But it goes on to state that if the fence is greater than 4 feet in height or more than 1/4 solid, it has to be 3 feet. What we're now asking is that all fences have to be 6 inches minimum from the lot line. What this does is, when you have 2 properties next to each other, there was quite often a 6-foot gap which was supposed to be in between them. With the advent of vinyl fencing and all now, where the maintenance is minimal, we felt as though 6 inches was plenty.
So what does the setback, because the way I read it, it sounded like a fence would have to be set back as far as your house was?
Actually, the setback is still the original. What it is if a fence is more than 1/4 solid or 4 feet in height, it can't go any closer to the street than what the house is. And that's the actual wording right now.
I don't know, I feel like I'd lose half my side yard because I'm on a corner lot.
I mean, like I said, that was a portion of it that we chose to keep. I mean, that's what's existing right now is basically what they're saying is like a chain link fence in your front yard is allowed, but if you have a 6-foot tall stockade fence, it can't go any closer to the street than your house.
Ralph, quick question.
Hold it, sir. Yes, sir.
How would this apply to existing structures? Are the existing structures grandfathered, or would this new standard be applied to any existing structures?
I would assume that if it's existing, it would be grandfathered in. Well, pre-existing.
Okay, thank you.
No, my question was simply a fence that's existing, damaged, what he asked, that would there be any problem just putting another fence back up, same height, same location, 3 feet from the property line?
It is a grandfather or pre-existing fence.
Yes, sir.
Could you clarify, when you have 2 properties abutting each other and 2 solid fences are up, you're saying it's 6 inches between the 2 is the minimum?
Actually, I believe that would be 12 inches because all fences have to be 6 inches from the plot line.
Do you have a vinyl fence at all that faces the north side? I mean, how in the world are you going to power wash the mildew off of that?
Typically, I mean...
I don't think it can be done.
Well, actually, as far as maintenance of a structure, under Mass General Law, Chapter 260, you do have the right to enter into, I'm going to use a neighbor's property to maintain your structure.
But if you have a corridor of 6 to 12 inches, I mean, how exactly are you going to do that?
What you're assuming is that 2 neighbors actually put 2 solid fences next to each other.
But it could happen.
There's a lot of things that could happen.
Are there any further questions? Again, this is a proposed zoning bylaw change, so it requires a 2/3 vote as with the others. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries. Article 30. I'm sorry, Article 29. I'm getting ahead of myself.
I move that the town vote to amend the East Long Meadow zoning bylaw 1991 revision pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, by amending Section 3.333 by deleting the existing language in its entirety and replacing with the language all as set forth in Article 29 of the warrant, and that the reading be waived.
Is there a second?
Second. Article 29 is again a clarification to an existing bylaw. This bylaw was voted at the May 2006 town meeting. The purpose of this bylaw is to prevent big box stores in the business district. As it is written, it's very convoluted and difficult to understand. With the planning board and the help of the bylaw review committee, the language that has been come up with is what is being presented to you tonight.
Are there any questions? Again, this is a zoning bylaw change. A two-thirds vote is required. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries. Now, Article 30.
I move that the town vote to amend the East Long Meadow zoning bylaw 1991 revision pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 48, by amending Section 3.343 by deleting the existing language in its entirety and replacing with the language all set forth in Article 30 of the warrant, and that the reading be waived.
Is there a second?
Again, the explanation for this article mirrors Article 29 to clarify the language and simplify it.
Is there any discussion? Yes, sir.
If I read this right, then half of the Industrial Garden Park wouldn't be there right now. Milton Bradley, Plastic Pack, there's quite a few, American Saw, Package Machinery. All those buildings wouldn't be there right now. Is that true?
I can't hear you. I'm not sure what the question is.
If this passes,
Yep.
those major buildings in the Industrial Garden Park in East Long Meadow,
Yep.
the major employers of this town would not be there.
They would not be affected, no. This is from here forward. We're not
That's true.
talking about the past.
But that means you're going to limit
This is retail as well.
anybody else to come into here.
I believe if I understand the motion correctly, it does not affect, it is limited to retail businesses, and the businesses you're describing would not be described as retail.
It says commercial property, though. Commercial.
No, it's retail. Retail stores in business district. This bylaw is doing the same for the industrial district. So it's not I think it's more about the square footage than it is the zone.
But it says industrial district in there.
Retail in industrial district.
On Article 30, Item 1. I don't know.
Are there any additional questions?
Now that I have the article in front of me, the floor area of any building used for retail sales purposes within an industrial district shall not exceed 65,000 square feet.
Yes, ma'am.
Why? Why is that limit set?
That limit was passed back in 2006.
So is this just clarifying of something that's already been passed?
That's all it's doing.
Any further discussion or questions? Again, a two-thirds vote will be required since it's an amendment to the zoning bylaw. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. That motion carries. Article 31.
The planning board will take no action on Article 31.
No action on Article 31. Article 32.
My name is Christopher Buendo, lifelong resident of East Long Meadow. I move that the town vote to amend the East Long Meadow zoning bylaw by amending Table 3-1, Schedule of Use Regulations, to allow a massage therapist facility or licensed massage therapy salon to operate under special permit in the commercial district as published in the warrant.
Is there a second?
The purpose for Article 32 is to see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw to allow massage therapist facilities or licensed massage therapy salons to operate under special permit in the commercial district, as well as the business and industrial districts where it is already allowed. A yes vote will allow licensed, legal, legitimate massage therapists to continue to operate in the town of East Long Meadow. Please be aware that every massage therapist facility will still need to come before the planning board to apply for a special permit in order to operate. Massage therapy is already allowed in two other zones in our town. This article simply includes the commercial zone along with the other zones. We are kindly asking the town to approve Article 32 so that practitioners like Ginny Levine and others can continue to operate. Ginny has been in our building since she passed her national exam for massage therapy in May 2010. She is a respected member of the business community. She has many venerable clients in town, and she wishes to continue to operate her business in the Reminder office building. There are other office buildings that have massage therapists in them that also would like to stay in town and continue to operate. We have received the unanimous support of the planning board, and now we need your support by standing and by saying aye. We appreciate your support. Thank you in advance.
Thank you, and it's my understanding that the planning board has voted to recommend. They have. Is there any discussion? Yes, ma'am.
I want to thank you for bringing this forward. There are indeed a number of licensed massage therapists, like other allied health professionals. When you think of physical therapists, speech therapists, etc., it's important that we be able to allow them to continue to work in our town. My daughter, who went to school here in East Long Meadow, had a really bad case of scoliosis for a number of years she was here. This particular therapist relieved her chronic pain in her spine. Same with my husband, who has some neck problems as well. And I think it's important for people to know that licensed massage therapists are very important to our health and well-being in this community and should not have to be driven out of this town because of the mistake in the zoning law. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional discussion or questions? Okay, this is a zoning bylaw proposed change, so it requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Cool. That motion carries unanimously. Article 33.
Good evening. I'm here to see if the town will vote to amend the general bylaws of the town by adding a new section as follows. Film Appropriation Committee meetings, all open session portions of regularly scheduled meetings of the Appropriation Committee shall be filmed by the East Long Meadow Community Access Television Department and shall be broadcast regularly on Community Access Television. This bylaw is not intended to expand the requirements in open meeting law, and the failure to film a meeting shall not affect the legality of such a meeting.
Is there a second?
The reason I have brought this article before you, the citizens of East Long Meadow, is because many people do not have the time to attend appropriation meetings, and the minutes available online are limited. Many residents always ask how their tax dollars are being spent, and filming appropriation committee meetings will help you understand on how the appropriation committee members vote and work with department heads on their budgets. The appropriation committee recommends or doesn't recommend each article on the town warrant and has a huge influence on many voters' decisions at the town meeting. As you can see by the articles on the warrant tonight, only one article 15 had no recommendation. Articles 3 through 20, again, 15 had no recommendation, were all recommended by the Appropriations Committee. As you can see, Articles 4 through 20 ranged from $2,000 to $250,000 and were respectfully sponsored by the Board of Selectmen, Department of Public Works, Board of Library Trustees, Board of Assessors, and the Community Preservation Committee. All departments looking for you to approve their budget requests. Tonight, if this article is passed by the residents of East Longmeadow, it will become a bylaw. This bylaw will be similar to the bylaw 3.070, which already requires boards and committees to be filmed by LCAT. A bylaw that will allow you, the citizens of East Longmeadow, to view from your home, the comfort of your homes, how the Appropriation Committee works on the appropriation and expenses with the department's heads on their budgets. As you can see by the warrant in your hands, Article 2 is the only article sponsored by the Appropriations Committee, and look at the amount, $55,994,000. This is a powerful committee, and its members are very influential. Although not an elected committee, I believe it is a committee that its meetings should be televised. Therefore, I am asking you, the residents of the town of East Longmeadow, to support this article by voting yes.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Yes, sir.
Mr. Moderator, thank you. My name is Russell Denver. I'm chair of the Appropriations Committee. And prior to this meeting, at a duly called meeting of the Appropriations Committee, we voted to oppose this article. And we raised two specific issues, and then I will sit down. One, there are 21 other appointed boards of this town, none of which you are asking that they be filmed. And as Ms. Thorpe indicated, when we raised the funds for the LCAT, if we then wanted to tape all 21 and put them on LCAT, that nice fee that we pay Charter every month is going to go up substantially. Second, about 80% of what we do day in and day out at our meetings are what ifs. And by that, I refer to what if we get more state aid? What if we don't get more state aid? Do we have to lay off town employees? Do we cut their benefits? Do we ask the school department to close a school? We do hypotheticals every time we meet. And our concern, and certainly we want to be as transparent as possible, our concern is if we have this bit of information on this Thursday, 2 weeks later, we could have different information. And if the residents aren't following the dialogue or aren't following from meeting to meeting, there will be concern on the streets about what's going to happen to my kid's teacher, whether I'm going to have additional police to respond to emergencies. It is something that we are very concerned about because we want to have the most accurate information to present to everybody here. And you all are at town meeting. You're the final say on the budget. What we don't want people to do is to walk away if they only watch one meeting and hear that we might be $2 million in the hole, and a month later, you know, the state has come through with the money. And they're walking around through town talking to their neighbors, creating confusion, and we don't need confusion when it comes to finances. We try to put a product out there based upon the most accurate information, and when we are at our meetings, we don't always have the ability to have that. So we don't want to instill fear in anybody. We love it when people come to our meetings. We want more people to come to the Appropriations Committee. We want more people to know how the budget operates. We want as many people educated as possible, but you need to be able to follow the process. That's it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to speak in favor of this article. I actually had the opportunity to attend several of the appropriations and capital planning meetings, and I have to say that I agree with Russ. They are informative. And They are a process, but you know, if you step back and look at the big picture, you're kind of underestimating the intelligence of the taxpayers in this town. To think that we're going to take a sound bite and then totally spin that into a negative position, that is not true. The mere reason that people are here tonight asking questions is what this town needs and continues to need. We need granularity and transparency together. So I would speak in favor of this motion. It's a good thing. It's a good thing for good government. Good government is a mutual and it's a bilateral process. And I would say that if you want to see the town of East Long Meadow government get better, this is your opportunity. For any opportunity that you thought was wrong in the past, this will be an excellent process to get to that point. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I think he was tall. Jean Delaney. My question to you is, have you talked to LCAT about whether they have anyone to film the meeting?
I used to be LCAT chairman of that committee, okay? I can tell you that the budget, when I left, I opposed it, went from 45 to 90,000. One of the articles today that you approved was $132,000 for that committee. I argued with that committee all the time, afraid of the budget increasing and going up, up, and up. I challenge anyone in this room to look and see what their taxes were in this town 5 years ago when I was on the Board of Selectmen. So getting back to your question as far as the LCAT, and that was as far as how many,
Quiet,
have
please.
I talked to anyone? No, I haven't talked to anyone. I haven't talked to anyone.
Because I was not asking about the budget. I was asking about whether or not there's actually any people available to do the filming.
Well, when you passed a bylaw, no different than when you passed a bylaw for the selectmen, the Board of Selectmen to be, the planning board, the other elected. This is
But the other elected boards, not appointed boards.
Right, and I'm
Because I'm on an appointed board, and you're not
understand.
filming mine.
No, I understand that, but you don't have the final say on the budget, and this is.
No, we have the final say on the Cultural Council funds disbursements.
Okay, it's
Okay.
whatever.
Yes, sir.
Don Mackey, I'm the LCAT director. To answer the previous speaker's question, if this warrant article were to pass, this department would fulfill its responsibilities. We, on a daily basis, take on stuff that we probably don't have the resources to do, but it's part of what we do. So I don't have an objection on that basis at all. I just do want to clarify a couple of points that Mr. Townsend made relative to your comment about the budget. Our budget, at least in my tenure, has been the same for the past, I'm going to say 5 years. And we're able to operate, as you know, it's been repeatedly stated, that money comes through the cable license, and it has absolutely no impact on taxation. So I just want to continually make that point. If you want to merge those things, I think it causes confusion. Those are really the only two things. If the people feel that this is an issue of transparency, we have been very supportive of that, so I don't have any reason to object to doing that. It would certainly put a strain on our resources. I think other people have spoken to other considerations that are worth taking into account. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, do you have an additional comment?
I do, sir. In comparison to all the big picture expenses that this town goes through, when you have a sensitive topic like this that really is hitting the nerves of some of the committees, and it's not an insult to your committee, trust me, but if you're happy with a department head getting a $20,000 increase, and you knew about that through LCAT being publicized because there was a firewall with the Appropriations Committee, they could have stopped that. The building inspector got a $20,000 raise last year. Who gets a $20,000 raise? Nobody. Not in the normal realm of things. So if you're happy with having things slip through, be costly to the town, don't vote in favor of this. But if you want transparency and granularity, And like I mentioned earlier, if you want some leverage on how things were treated in the past and how you can have input in the future, I urge you to vote yes for this. Thank you.
If I may just clarify one point, it's my understanding, and I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, but the Appropriations Committee does not take votes on individual salaries except in specific, unique circumstances, and the salary increase that you're talking about would not necessarily have come before the Appropriations Committee in any event.
Mr. Moderator, just a correction too. That was a raise that was put in just after last year's town meeting stopped. That was not an extraordinary expense. The Appropriations Committee had to take a vote to transfer funds from the reserve fund. Okay? And you know that is true, and they know that's true. So this is a chance to put a stop to that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
I would like to speak in favor of the Appropriations Committee, not this subject. I have found it very interesting to attend these meetings. The one thing that is so valuable is the ability to express your opinion and share it with the Appropriations Committee. LCAT would be a reasonable way of showing what they're doing, but nothing would beat the people of East Long Meadow becoming involved in the politics of their town and attend these meetings if they are really and truly interested. I am quite often disturbed to be the only one that goes to the Capitol meeting or selectman meeting or that type of thing. Somehow we've got to get the pride of our town back to work and become our business, not the business of others. Each one of us has a responsibility to share the responsibilities of our town. And I would like to ask those that are here tonight to take that as a challenge and be sure to come to some of these meetings. You'll find out what's going on, and you'll also find out that they want to hear from you. And that's very important. We need this two-way communication to make things work. And I want to see this town get better. I want it to get better because of us, not someone else. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there any further discussion? Yes, Joe.
Again, I brought this before not to put the Appropriations Committee on stage, and I brought it before for the purpose of transparency because of the subject that they deal with, and that's the dollars that go through our town. And again, if you look around right now, you can see that maybe there's 200 people here right now, maybe. I understand what you're saying about people showing up for Appropriations Committee meetings, but if they can't even show up for a town meeting, they're certainly not going to show up every Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday night. They meet once a week from, I'd say, September through January or February. You know, so that's the only reason to bring this into the comfort of your home. And at that, I guess I have nothing else to add.
Thank you, sir. Now, this is not a zoning change, so this does not require a two-thirds vote. This is a simple majority vote. All those in favor of the motion made under Article 33, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
I think that motion fails.
Thank you.
Article 34. I don't believe there is any action planned to be undertaken under Article 34, so I would thank all of you for your thoughtful participation this evening. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Thank you very much.
Had it all the way.
A little after 10, huh? Not too bad.
You got any cookies? Were we okay?